So, hello everyone, I'm Angie Jones. Hear echo. You hear echo? A little bit? Can you come down? Okay. How's that? Good? All right, cool. I'm an automation architect. Work at Aptitude in San Francisco, also director of Test Automation University, which is a free online platform with courses on all things test automation. Today I want to talk to you about automated visual testing. So true story, there was actually a lady who was telling me about, she was running regression tests at her job. And they were running this every day. And she said that the color scheme of her application changed, and she didn't even notice, even though she was working with this every single day. She didn't notice until a customer brought it up to her. And I thought, of course you didn't notice, because we all suffer with inattentional blindness. And what inattentional blindness is where unexpected changes come in your viewport, and yet you don't see them, right? Have you all seen the video with the basketball and the gorilla? You saw this before? Exactly. Some people are like, yes. Okay. But it shows that when you're very focused on a certain thing, then you don't see other things that are happening around you. And this is especially true for testing. As we are testing a specific feature, we might not notice other things that are going on in our application because we're so focused on that feature. So how do you solve for inattentional blindness? We typically automate, right? And so we say, okay, I'm going to automate the same steps every time, and I'm going to make sure that I do the same assertions every time, and that way I won't miss anything. Except what you're actually doing is automating in the inattentional blindness. Because your scripts are only looking for whatever you explicitly told it to, right? So, for example, let's say that your script is looking for some text to be present. What about if that text is upside down? What if the text is off the page? What if the text is hidden behind some other element? Your script says pass every time. Because you only asked it, is that text there suffering from that inattentional blindness? Now, the good news is that we can automate the visual aspects of them. That's what I'm going to show you today. And this is not just a nice to have. A lot of people I talk to, they may say, those are some interesting edge cases, right? So these are not edge cases. I can't tell you how many applications I see these visual bugs in all the time, big and small companies. For example, this is Cineworld. Cineworld is the second largest movie chain in the world. And they had a visual bug on the page that asks you if you want to store your credit card. Here's that bug. So you see the labels over here, they're not aligning with the radio buttons. And when we see this, we kind of chuckle. It's kind of funny, right? And it might not seem like a huge deal, but I don't know about you, I would not store my credit card on this page because I don't trust that it's actually been tested. I don't know that for sure. Looking at it, it doesn't look like it. At least that's what Kim thinks. And she was so annoyed by this, she even tweeted about it. So now everybody knows that they have this horrible bug. And as a product, this is not something that you want. You don't want this type of reputation, right? But I have a theory. I believe they actually did test this. In fact, I believe they automated it. If this ran in your build, it would pass. The radio buttons are there, they're present. The labels are present. In the DOM, everything is fine. So your scripts can actually click this and keep going. This is one of those bugs that you wouldn't see until this was in production and a customer told you about it. OpenTable. How many people use OpenTable? I used to live in North Carolina. North Carolina is famous for its barbecue. So I went back to visit, and I wanted to catch up with some old friends. So I went to OpenTable to make a reservation at my favorite barbecue place there. And it's a reservation for 7 people. So I selected the date, and it gave me some options for times. And then when I clicked on the button for the time that I wanted, a modal popped up. And it took me a minute to figure out what am I supposed to do here because there's nothing in the middle here, right? So I started kind of like scanning the screen, and I noticed those 2 select buttons up in the upper left corner. And I thought, well, that's a bug. Are there supposed to be 2 of them or 1? And why are they not aligned? And what exactly am I selecting? Because there's no text here, right? So I did what any of you would do. I opened Chrome DevTools, and I started digging around to figure out what are these buttons. And once I did that, I saw that the labels actually were here. I totally missed them. They're right here. As far away as possible from the buttons, right? And so I figured out which one went with which because I really wanted this barbecue, right? But how many people could do that? Most of their customer base is not going to open Chrome DevTools. It's not going to try to map labels to buttons. And this was a party of 7. And we were going to have drinks and food and then spend a bunch of money, right? So this could have been a reservation loss. And I'm sure there are many reservations that they have lost because of this bug. Now, these are just one-offs. This happens to your favorite tech companies as well. It happens to Amazon. It happens to Facebook. It happens to Twitter. And it even happens to Google. Now Google, this one I thought, well, it's not really that bad. You know, sure, the text is coming off the button, but this is Google. And this button correlates to money. So that means one of their overpriced engineers is going to have to stop innovating new features to go track down this silly bug. That's expensive, right? So this is a problem. Now, like I said, we can automate against these types of bugs with visual validation. What visual validation is when you first write your test, you have your script take a screenshot, a picture of the application in its golden state. And then as you run regression, run that test again, it takes another screenshot and compares the 2 to see if there are any differences or if it's still the way you want it to. Now, visual validation isn't anything that's really new. This has been around for a while. But an older technique that was used was pixel-to-pixel comparison. And this gave visual validation a bad name because of its flakiness. Let me show you what I mean. So this first picture is a screenshot of the golden state test. The second one is the regression test that failed. Who can tell me why this failed? What about Google search? It's highlighted, it's bolded, right? So this button, this Google search button, looks different from that Google search button. So you think, oh, is this a bug? And you look around and explore and triage this only to find out, oh, duh, when the mouse hovers over that button, it bolds like this. So now your automated scripts, just because the mouse happened to be over that button, this would fail. So you say, oh, this is annoying. I don't want to deal with that kind of thing, right? Here's another one. Why did this one fail? The cursor after the word bad. Cursors blink, right? So in the first test, the cursor is in a solid state. And then in the regression test, it happened to not be. and this failed. I don't know about you, I don't want to be bugged with these kind of things. This is not a true failure. This is flakiness, right? This is a very fragile tool. Fortunately, Apple Tools has created a new way to do visual testing using AI. So it utilizes machine learning to act just as our eyes and our brain would to compare a picture. It only highlights the things that matter. So here's a game of spot the difference. Okay, 2 pictures. I ran these through the pixel-to-pixel comparison, and it highlighted all of the things. Everything here is highlighted. That's because it's so fragile, it's looking at every single pixel. So even little shifts or adjustments in white spaces are captured. This is useless from an automated testing perspective, right? Then I ran it through the ISTQB, which uses the machine learning, and that was able to capture it like we would and pick out the things that were actually different. So let's add it. Enough of me talking. I'm going to actually show you a Selenium WebDriver code base, and we're going to add visual testing to this code base. Now this ISTQB, although I'm using it with Selenium, it works with pretty much any automation tool out there. Are there some, anybody use anything other than Selenium? No? Do y'all do automation? Am I at the right place? Alright, so everybody's a Selenium user? Okay, great. And I'm going to show you this in Java, but it works in all languages as well. Anybody don't use Java? What do you use? Python? JavaScript? All right, cool. So, this is the application of the test. It's a single-page application. It's a bookstore with 8 of my favorite books in test automation. The way that this works is you can filter this down by the title of the book or by the author of the book. So for example, if I put in Java, I will see the 3 books that have Java in the title. If I put in Lisa, I'll see the book where Lisa is one of the co-authors of the book. That's the entire application, okay? So we have a test for this already. This is searching by full title. So it says, okay, I want to look for the book that has agile testing of the title, using this page object model to actually search for that title, and then 2 assertions. 1, to make sure that that book is actually visible, and then another assertion to make sure that it's the only book that's visible and there aren't other ones as well. Okay? So let's actually put this in. And that will be our test. So it will validate this. Now, based on what we have, verifying that the book is visible, let me show you what that method even looks like. So we say, is the book visible? And what this will do is get all of the visible books that are on the page, traverse through them, and see if the title that was passed in matches one of the titles that was provided to the method. Okay? So given that, we're making sure the title is this, and we're making sure this is the only book. What do you think about this test? Is there any way we can improve it? Y'all are too quiet. Do we have beer? Do we need a beer break? No one? Is this perfect? It's a perfect test. Yes?
How does it identify the books? Is it like a web element or based on the image?
It's based on the title, is what it has right now.
And what if the titles are overlapping here?
It wouldn't catch it. So this test wouldn't catch it, the title was overlapping, make sure that it's in the right place. What about the author? So yes, the book is there, but are the authors correct? What about the price? Is the price correct? What about the thumbnail? When you go to Amazon and look for a book, most times when you search and you look through the results, you're looking visually for the thumbnail, right? You're not reading every title, because you probably saw this book promoted somewhere or someone recommended it to you. So you're looking for the thumbnail, right? None of that is captured here. with this test. In fact, let me run this test for you. Let's just make sure the thing even runs. So great, this passed, beautiful. Now, let's take our tester hat off for a minute. Let's put our developer hat on. We're actually gonna go inside of this application. Do I have it open? Yikes. Okay. All right, let's go into the CSS. And inside of the CSS, let's say we're the developer, we just took this cool CSS course and we want to flex our muscles and we have great ideas about how to make this app look better, right? So we want to add a little animation to the application, right? So we add this and we feel pretty confident. We ship it to production. We didn't even look at it, but we're testers. Let's look and see what it looks like. So we go here and let's refresh this. Oh my God, the entire app has flipped upside down. That's okay, because we have tests for this, right? So let's run our test again. Still passes, right? Why? Because the book was there. The title was there. There was only one of them. And yet we flipped this entire thing upside down and it's gone unnoticed. That's why we want to add visual validation. So let's fix the bug and make sure our app is fixed. So management says, okay, we got to do better, right? This went out to production. No one caught it. Let's fix this. So to add visual validation, I'm actually going to add it. I can add it right here in this test, but what I want to do is add it at a higher level, at this base test level, because I want to be able to use it in any of my tests, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to declare this IS API. So I'm just going to declare it using this IS class. That's the name of the class. And after we've launched the app and set everything up, I'm going to make a call to a new method that I haven't created yet. We'll call this initialize. Get it? And we'll create that method. So let's make that private. And in this method, we are going to create a new instance of IS. And then we need to give it an API key. So when you create your free Applitools account, you get an API key that you can use in your test. So we can say is.setAPI and I actually have mine stored in an environment variable. So I'm going to just give it the variable name, which I called Applitools API key. All right. So this will go ahead and set that up. And then for the actual check, I'm going to make another method for this. Let's make it protected. And we'll call this one validate window. All right. Now, what we do is first we say eyes.open. Get it? Open your eyes. We give it our Selenium WebDriver. We give it the name of the application, which I've already defined, and then we give it the name of the test. Now, since I put this at a higher level, I don't know what the name of the test is. Basically, anyone who calls me, I just want to get their name. So I'm going to use this little trick to get the name of the method that has called me. So that'll give me the test name in all cases. So now that I've said open your eyes, I then say go ahead and check this window. And then close your eyes. And that's it. And now I can just take this method call and put this in my test, right? So I put the call there and that'll validate the window. Now I can use this in conjunction with any other assertions I have. It's not taking over Selenium, but if I think about this, this is checking the entire window. So it's checking to make sure that one book is there. So now I can delete this. It's checking to make sure that that book is visible. So now I can delete this. So now I'm getting rid of code as I'm adding even more assertions. Not just this test code, I could really go back to my page object class and delete a lot of that code as well. All of those selectors and things, I no longer have to maintain that code. I am free. All right, so let's give this a run. And might be a little slow because I'm on this Wi-Fi, but what this is going to do, runs the test using Selenium. It's now taking a picture of this entire screen. It's going to send this out to the Applitude's cloud. So you don't have to store this stuff on your computer. You don't have to take the picture yourself. All of this is done. We see the test is finished, and now this is out on the cloud. Let me show you this on the cloud. Now I don't have to come in here, but I just came in here to show you. Really, I don't have to do anything as long as I'm content. So this is the screenshot that is taken, entire window stored here, and this is stored as a test, right? And there's no baseline because this is the very first time. Now, if I do nothing at all, what this will do is store this picture as the baseline image. And then when I run my regression test, it'll take a new picture, compare it to this one, all right? So let's say that eager developer made the bug when we had visual testing. And let's see if it gets caught then. Let's make sure that the app is broken. Yes, that's so fun to flip this app upside down. Okay, now let's run this test again. Now we see that it failed, okay? So we go back, let me show you in the code base. So that now that this has failed, we see this diffs not found exception is thrown. It tells us, hey, there was a difference detected and gives a link to the dashboard. So you really only need to go here if something is wrong. We open this up, wait, let me show you. This is marked as unresolved, not failed, right? Which I really like. Because this is using machine learning. People always ask, hey, is machine learning going to take our jobs as testers? This shows me it won't. So this is telling me that this is unresolved, meaning I still have a job. I still need to go in here and figure out what's wrong. And that's great because what this is saying is, hey, I detected something, but a human being, you're smarter than I am. You figure out like if this is a bug or not, right? So I come in here and I say, okay, what's different? You see that these books are highlighted. Could also click this button and it'll show me like this is what's wrong. And I say, oh my God, this is upside down. And then I could do a thumbs down to fail the test. And then that would mark it as failed, right? Let's say that this was not a bug and it was something that we wanted, it was intentional. If it flagged this, we could then say, no, don't worry, that's not a bug, thumbs up, okay? So I marked this as failed, and now this test has failed, all right? So let's fix our application. Now, who can tell me some pros and cons of using visual testing in this way? Let me show you this again. Pro, yes?
I mean, pro definitely we can identify all the elements and we can make sure that it's like expected with the summation with all the blocks. But I was even more curious about all the text or the images within images. What if the book has like similar image at the front page how does it behave in that case?
Talking about if it was more than one book?
No, the same book with the same front page.
But there is a spelling mistake inside the book. What do you mean?
It will catch it. So we'll look at the text and everything. So let's say that the book was spelled wrong a month from now, it will catch that, right? So some pros is that it's validating this entire window. So not only this book is validating this, the search query. I wouldn't think to put that in my test to make sure the search query is actually present in this thing, right? I assume that that works, right? So it's validating that. It's validating the title of the page. All of that is great. So it's giving us a lot of validations with only that one line of code to check the window, right? What are some cons? Yes?
You're dependent on after school or third party.
That's not a con, man. Yes?
You're depending on static data. You were testing, like, say, Twitter or algorithms.
Okay, all right. So you're dependent on this data being static, right? Anything else?
If there was more than one result for agile testing, like if there was more than one book that came back.
Right, it would catch that.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I mean, your pro is also a con, right? If you had tests on the search bar and it fails on the search bar, it's going to fail on everywhere else. So I guess if you're catching in multiple places, you also fail in multiple places.
Right, I love that. Your pro is also a con. So the pro is that it's validating the entire window. A con is that it's validating the entire window, right? So things on here that I don't necessarily care about will be failed with this test. Like he said, what if there was a bug with this search, right? With the text itself. Every single test that I have is going to fail because of that. So that's a lot of noise coming back to me as the engineer. Fortunately, ISE is very flexible. So we could narrow this down. We could scope this down to say just the book area. I can say, forget everything else on this page, only verify this book. So let's do that. So in this test, I have this validate window, right? I could make another one of these, and instead of saying the window, I could say validate the element. And you could scope this using a locator. So pass me your locator. And instead of this check window, I could do check element and just do the locator. So in our test, I could go here, and instead of the validate window, I say validate element, and I already have this ID defined for this book. So this is the Agile testing one, and I can say give me the locator. All right? Now let's run this again. Is this going to pass or is this going to fail? How many people say pass? Raise of hands. How many people say fail? Raise of hands. Y'all don't know and don't care. All right, it failed. Let's see why. So we go back out to our dashboard and we look at this one. Aha. So the first baseline is the entire window. The second baseline is just the book itself. So we've changed what we're asking this thing to verify. And that's okay. We have a new baseline that we want now. So all we do is say, yes, this is good. Which means I want you to take this new image and replace my baseline with this. This is what I want my new test to be. Okay? And then going forward, that will be okay. Now, what's some pros and cons of verifying it on the element level? I'll go first. A pro is that it's scoped down, right? So as engineers, as test engineers, when we write our tests, we're taught to make sure that your test is very specific and only verifying the thing that you are testing. Perfect. So this verifies the thing that we are testing. Any cons to this?
Doesn't verify the location.
Location of what? Oh, the book.
Within the window.
Within the window. Beautiful. So, this book, we don't even know where this lives on the page. Who knows where it is, but it's there. So yes, that's a con. Any other cons? Yes.
What if you have like 100 tests? You need to go to each test and click this thumbs up button.
Actually, if you had a bunch of these, you could do this kind of auto thing, this auto maintenance with this scope. And I could say like, apply this change to like all of them. So I could do that. That'll get me around it, but good thinking. Any other cons? Yeah.
So we removed number of books assertion. There could be more books.
Thank you. So, let's say I search for agile testing. Let's say that the search didn't even work. So, none of the books were filtered down. All 8 of them are still on the screen. What this assertion is going to do is say, let me find the agile testing book. Does it look beautiful? Yes. Pass. Not catching that the 7 other books are still on the page as well, right? So you can couple these things. I never recommend to anyone that they use visual validation as their entire solution, right? In some tests it'll make sense like, yep, just do the visual check. But in other tests it makes sense to couple it with something else. So that assertion that we had earlier, we can say, okay, validate the element, make sure that book looks good, but also add that assertion, was it assert equals, and make sure that I only have one book, right? So page dot get number of visible books is 1. Expected actual. Expected actual. Right? So I can couple these things, and then this gives me a lot of power now. So I made sure that it's only the one, but then I also am able to visually verify it as well. Okay? So someone said, so we talked about the pros and cons of the elements. Someone said, what about if you are working somewhere like Twitter or your data is dynamic, right? So funny thing, I actually used to work for Twitter, and we were still able to use the visual validation of amplitudes because, like I said, it's so flexible. So in addition to verifying the window or scoping it down to an element, we can also use this on dynamic data to say, don't worry about trying to read the contents of it or anything. I just want to make sure structurally that this page is okay, right? So what I want to do is go back to our app, and this time let's go into the JavaScript. And we're going to change the order of the books. So let's see what we have now. Somebody's very popular.
Yep.
Okay. So we go here. Let's reload this. So everything looks great. This first book is Experiences of Test Automation. Second book is Test Automation in Real World. So let's switch the order of those. So actually, let's write the test first. So let's make a new test. And we'll call this one Test Dynamic Layout. And all we need to do is say validate window in this case, right? So when we run this, it'll validate the entire window, but we can also make a call to change the way that it's comparing, so the algorithm that it's using. By default, it was using what's called strict. And with strict, it's making sure that everything looks like you want. There's a couple of other ones as well. So I can do eyes.set match level. And this match level enum has a couple of things. So it has content, which basically means go colorblind. I don't care about the colors, only look at the content. There's layout, that's the one we're going to use to verify just the layout. There's exact, which is the pixel to pixel, but I told you don't use that because it sucks, right? So, dynamic, let's go ahead and run this test now. I'm actually going to, yes, run this. And this will make a new test for us. So we have experiences of test automation, followed by test automation in the real world. All right, that passed. Now let's go ahead and switch the order of these books. And let's check it. So let's make sure this switched. Yes. All right, now let's run the test again. All right, and it passed. So we go back to our dashboard. Let's look at this. We see here that the two books are, the two pictures have the books kind of swapped. And this still passed because it's only looking at the layout. So are these books aligned as they should be? Is there like this purple block with some text in it in the upper right corner? Is there the thumbnail? Is there bolded text representing some title followed by non-bolded text, which are the authors, right? Now, if I change this, I can actually do a preview here. I can say preview different match level, and I can say show me this in strict. We saw it in strict, you see that it then finds that those two books were switched. But because we did it at the layout level, we are good. Other cool things here is like these annotations. I love this, especially when I'm doing like mobile testing. So these layouts allow you to do things like ignore regions. So when you take a picture of like a mobile app, it takes like the header, the status bar and all that, the footer. So status bar has the time, it has the battery level, Wi-Fi, all this stuff. So you could actually put like little things on here to say ignore this certain region of the picture or whatever. So that's a really cool feature as well. Now, what are some pros and cons of the dynamic validation? A pro is that it's very, very flexible, right? So on things like Twitter, on sites like news sites, for example, where all of the stories are going to be different from day to day, maybe even hour to hour, structurally you can still make sure these are okay. A con, you all are too kind. Yes?
Would it catch it if it rotated it?
Would it catch it if it rotated it? I don't know. Let's try after. Is that a pro or a con?
It's a con because it's too flexible.
Too flexible. Any other cons? I'll go with the too flexible, right? So, again, it's where your pro is your con. Pro is, oh, this is super flexible. Con is, it's a little too flexible, right? In some cases. So again, this is where you as the engineer, you have to think about this yourself. This machine learning stuff is very powerful, right? So you could throw it at everything. I have teams that are like, oh, let's let's do check window on all the tests, right? And it's slapping this everywhere, but you find yourself getting into some trouble when you do this, right? So you have to think about this strategically. What types of checks should I do? Depending on what it is I'm verifying, right? So if you do a layout check on all of your tests, what are you actually testing? Everything is just testing that the screen looks okay, but what about the data and stuff, right? So that's what I wouldn't recommend using this as a standalone approach, the layout testing. I use this for things like maybe some smoke tests. Make sure the app is up and looks okay before we do other things. Also, I use this when I'm doing testing on the back end, right? So maybe I want to verify the data using API calls, but then I just want to make sure that the screen looks okay so I can toss this in that test as well. All right? One more thing. A new feature that has come out with eyes is testing across different platforms. So when mobile testing first exploded on the scene, like we all were thinking, oh my God, everybody is using all of these different devices, and so I have to verify and test across all of these different things, different browsers, different smartphones, tablets and iPads and the works, right? What we are finding out is that people are not getting a return on their investment when running across these different platforms. The reason for that is because most of the bugs that you see on different devices have nothing to do with the functionality. They're mostly to do with viewport changes, thus creating visual bugs. And if you don't have visual testing, we already saw your scripts are blind to these types of things. So people aren't seeing those changes. So what we've introduced now is Visual Grid. What Visual Grid does is when you run your test, you only run it this one time. So let's say we ran one of our tests. It grabs the DOM, all of the assets, such as the JavaScript, the CSS, and everything. It takes that, and then it throws it against all of the platforms that you want, all of the devices that you want, and then it presents it on those devices in that state. So you drive it with your Selenium to the state you want it, grab it, throw it on an iPhone in that same state, and then do the visual checking across all of those devices. So you run once, and you have this run against all different devices. So let me show you. I've actually ran this test against a lot of different things. So here it is. That's okay. All right, so I ran this test one time, and it created all of these different tests for all of these different environments because I specified this in my code. So in my code, I have this little class here, Visual Grid Config, where I say, okay, here are the browsers I want to run against and the width and the height of them, and then here are my devices. And I want to do them in landscape and in portrait, right? So looking in the dashboard, we can see all of these different screenshots, and we see them in different viewports. And so it'll verify all of these as these different tests. So I run once, and it runs against all of these. And it's really, really fast because it's not running the scenario on all of these different devices. You run the scenario once, grab the state, and then see how that looks across other things. So that's a pretty cool feature that I'm really excited about. All right, so that's what I have, automated visual testing. Are there any questions that I can answer? I didn't think so. You all are so quiet. All right. Yes?
Does it support anything like ADA compliancy?
What's ADA? The accessibility?
Yeah. they're doing, you know, the WCAG.
Right. Probably not at the level that you are thinking of. Now, there is a gentleman that works with us, and he's really excited about accessibility things. So he's found ways to utilize this for accessibility testing as well. I'm not as well versed in that, so I'm not going to try to lie about that. I don't know. But not to the extent of compliance, ADA compliance. But might be something that we look into. I want to look into his research, because I need to give a talk later on this year about doing it in accessibility. So I'm going to look into that some more. So be on the lookout. There is a blog post. He actually did write a blog post about it on Amplitude. So if you go to Amplitude's blog and search for accessibility, you can find it.